What's going on, Tom E?
I'm just pecking away at my computer here, trying to put together my quick slants plan. I put out a little poll, so I'm cutting and pasting that poll into the email I'm going to send in, saying, let's use this poll at the bottom of the A block. Do you want to hear the poll?
Yeah, of course we do.
What would you cough up to get up to number 2 and take Travis Hunter? First offer, and this is the points, it would be 4, 38, and 69. And only 12% of people are saying that they would do that, which is reasonable. That's way too friggin' much for a bad team to do.
Okay, so
that's a ton.
We were actually kicking this around. I didn't realize you were doing this as a show poll. We were just kicking this around off the air, Keefe and myself. Is some of this because of Peter Schrager's reporting today? Teams are calling to move up to 2 and 3 with the Browns and the Giants. Yeah.
Yeah, and I talked to Dan Duggan from The Athletic, who covers the Giants brilliantly, Quincy native, about this the other day. And, he said it's not ludicrous. I mean, the drop-off is so significant I still am mind-boggled by the notion that Cam Ward is just the layup number 1 overall pick. Just Tennessee is destined to be horrible for the rest of the decade. But when you look at that, it does make sense. You have 2 premier players, and you have at number 4 players that there are some niggling details about, whether it's Campbell or Membu or even Ashton Genty, because there's so many decent running backs in the class. Why not just go up and get the guys who are supposed to be layups? But the cost is so high among those top 3 picks when it comes to that point and trade value chart.
What player do you think Drake Maye would want the most at number 4?
Yeah. I don't know who he would want. I guess in his heart of hearts, he'd probably like to have a wide receiver. I don't know if 23-year-olds know what they don't know, even though he's been playing quarterback probably since he was 8 years old. I've been watching it since before he was born, and so have you. Just trying to put out a wide receiver. You really, really, really desperately need to fix left tackle. It's held the team hostage. They've whistled past the graveyard. But a quarterback being a quarterback, he'd probably say, "Give me a wideout."
Yeah, because I go back and forth on that, because I'm sure, when he's getting sacked last year, running for his life, he's like, oh, I'd love a left tackle. But then when he's watching his guys drop passes and run the wrong route, he's thinking, oh, I really want a receiver. But I wonder, in this particular draft, I don't think there is that Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors type of guy. So you might be better off just beefing up the old line. I think Will Campbell has become one of the more polarizing guys in the draft. I would take him at 4. Jones doesn't really like that. Where do you come down on Campbell, I guess, specifically?
I would take him at 4 with sweaty palms.
Yeah.
And I would take him before Membu. I would also try to trade down first before taking him, add something, and then say, okay, well, somebody took Will Campbell. All right, too bad, so sad. We'll take Membu, or we'll take Warren. And then we'll address our tackle spot with Connerly from Oregon or Josh Simmons from Ohio State later on. I would also, this is fun, I was just talking to Matt Castle for the pod and for Quick Slants. How about this? Why not trade down to number 6 with the Raiders?
Trade with Brady. Okay, keep going. Yeah, trade with Brady, yep.
And get Jacoby Myers. So 1 year left on his deal at $10 million. Okay, he's not high end, but now you'd have Diggs, Myers, and you've addressed 2 things right there at the top.
Yeah,
you move down 2 spots. You can still get your left tackle.
Is he available?
It frees you up a little.
You brought up Myers in the past, right? I think you surmised Myers and Joe Milton in the past. So is he actually available? I guess would be my question. But if he is, great.
He's in the final year of his contract. He's making $10 million. Maybe he isn't available at all. But I say that, and we all know that everybody's available for a price. It's whether or not that would be something that's enticing. I've mentioned it so frequently previously, and it didn't happen, that I'm wondering, well, it makes too much sense to not do it for the Patriots. Now, maybe the Raiders probably are looking at it like we could upgrade to at wide receiver here. So to me, I would continue to explore that. So it's more of a theoretical, as Ordway used to hit the carnival noise with the theoretical trades. So it's just a theoretical trade.
Well, speaking of receivers, we saw a workout video of Steph Diggs. are you confident that he's going to be back sometime soon? I know it's like a guessing game when you look at these videos. Tears the ACL around Halloween, trying to figure out when this guy is going to be back. Are you optimistic that we're going to see him sooner rather than later?
I would be stunned if he is a significant September contributor. Now, what do I know? Am I the doctor? Have I worked out with him? Have I trained him? Do I have? No, I don't. So before you guys aggregate that and send that clip out, it's just common sense. Well, it ends up in the friggin' New York Post or something.
Okay, but you know
that's
too,
when you know
Curran.
you've made it though, Tom.
Yeah,
New York Post.
But
Come on.
too, like they're really not. They're not on the hook for much money at all for Steph Diggs in his contract. The initial reporting was way out of whack. Florio's dug in on these details. I mean, they're really on the hook for no money if he has any setback with his knee, or he still hasn't passed the physical, to my understanding, is the way Florio wrote it. So, like, they're not really even in jeopardy of anything, which tells me they don't expect much out of him.
Right, they're hoping. It's a hope situation, and I think that it remains in Steph Diggs. He hopes that he's able to do those things, and he's confident, I'm sure, that he can, because this is the opportunity that he got in April to sign with the team, or maybe it was March, and say, you know what? How about this? Why don't I just take this money and I'll show everybody in the league that I can still do this at 31 years old, and I'm going to. So to me, it's a hope. It's a prove-it contract. And it's on him, and all the onus is on him, and all the motivation is on him. So I wouldn't bet against somebody like Stefon Diggs, who's as talented as he is and who has the background. But to forecast how an ACL is going to respond, how quickly, we can go back to Wes Welker or Tom Brady. Of course, that's 15 or 16 years ago now, but both of them struggled to get back. I think that wasn't Bourne's an ACL as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He wasn't really himself until later in the year, and he was a good player, believe it or not, in 2023. So I wouldn't bet on him being a significant contributor before Columbus Day.
And so with that kind of timetable, do you think that gives a guy like Jalen Polk a better chance of sticking around a little bit longer, right? Maybe not. Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know. I think that those guys are probably on the verge of, they're looking for ways to replace the bottom tier of that room. I would be stunned if Mike Vrabel and Ryan Cowden didn't say, you know what, we're going to put their feet to the fire here. I don't care. It wasn't my second round pick. And he's either going to be on this fast moving train or he's not. So, and that would probably go for Booty and Polk and Baker, all of them, because McDaniels isn't going to come in and say, no, it's okay. You didn't run the right route. You were at 7. You're supposed to be at 11 on that one. It's okay. We'll get him next time. It's not going to be like that, thankfully. So that's why I continue to look at guys like Myers, who know what the expectation levels are, and say the Patriots should be aggressive in trying to find guys who can come in and fit. Like, who fits? They went and got Mac Hollins because he had 50 catches for Josh a couple of years ago in Las Vegas. They're going to love to have Kendrick Bourne here still because he had 55 catches in 2021 for Josh. Just add people who can run Josh's offense at the wide receiver position and marry him up with the quarterback.
So I was just going to ask you about Booty. You brought his name up there. You know, Schefter had the item that, you know, he's the kind of player who could get dealt at the draft. What could they realistically expect for Booty in a trade?
A 6th, because every other team, realistically, if that, because every team in the league knows that, okay, they're trying to trade a 6th-round pick who is good for 5 games on the worst team in the league. He was basically Kevin Gamble for the early 90s Celtics.
He literally gambled on himself. Yeah,
he did.
I mean, that was the whole thing with Kevin Gamble. I remember saying to my brother, he's really good. He goes, he's not good. He's just the only guy on the team scoring points. They stink.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the Keyshawn Booty role right now. And to me, every team's going to look at it and go, I think we're going to give up a draft pick for a guy who's going to get cut in 2 months? No. So, and I'm not saying he's going to get cut because he is the best wide receiver in the room in terms of body control, ability to separate, and hands, despite some bad hand situations.
You had mentioned Ramondre Stevenson a couple of weeks back with us about a guy that maybe also could be perhaps dealt or they move on from. Do you think, especially if they draft a running back first, second, or third round this weekend, that's a guy that might be looking over his shoulder?
I think he should. I did an exercise yesterday with about the top 30 players on the team, ranking them in terms of how relevant are they to the team's core going forward based on production, their current contract, et cetera. I didn't get to Ramondre Stevenson until like 21 or 22. And the reason for that was his production does not match his contract. He's got the fifth highest per year average in terms of money in the NFL. He's got a top 10 contract as a running back by every measure. In each of the last 2 years, he's been outplayed by his backup, Elliott and Gibson. So to me, you're looking at that, and a guy who was actively ending possessions and giving teams points that you were playing against by turning it over. So he should be looking over his shoulder or looking at it and saying, man, I mean, he's only making $9 million a year because running backs don't make that much only. But, you know, he hasn't been good since 2022. So that's got to count against them as they look forward and look at this running back class, which is really, really good.
Okay, so you were referencing your latest, and it's Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. Your latest is which players are part of the Patriots' future, ranking the roster. So Stevenson was noticeably low, and you just explained why. There were two other names that kind of jumped out to me, noticeably low. They're both in the secondary. I thought Jabril Peppers was pretty far down this list, which was interesting to me. And then Carlton Davis, who they just spent a bunch of money on. Maybe you would disagree with my characterization that you're low on him. But he's lower than Garrett Bradbury and Antonio Gibson and Brendan Schooler and Anthony Jennings and names like this. That kind of jumped out to me. So why are you lower on those two?
You know, I just look at, for instance, with Peppers, they have spent so much. He was their best player. Literally, I think he was their MVP in 22 and 23. I thought he was their best player in terms of on-field and leadership, et cetera. But to have what happened last year, to be arrested, to go through a very public situation, and for the team right now to be talking so relentlessly about character and the right people, et cetera, I think it does bear watching. Also, one of the reasons he's so low is he's an older player, and is he going to be part of the core going forward? To me, I look at Peppers, and my experiences with him have been good. Can he go to Vrabel and explain what happened? And they say, okay, well, let's let bygones be bygones, and you're a very valuable player to us, and you can be good. No slip-ups, we're fine. Then I'm sure he could elevate. But to me, his play wasn't great last year. Duggar's play certainly wasn't great. And when you add all the things together about who's going to be part of their core, this was a going-forward task as well. Who is definitely going to be here as part of their core for the next few years? I look at guys like, you know, Antonio Gibson, who might be a good player for them for a few years, as being more prominent than a Ramondre Stevenson. So in the case of Carlton Davis, paying $20 million a year for him. Now you have outs a little bit in the 3 years that he is your second best cornerback. If he's not playing like a $20 million a year player, which I have a hard time conceiving that he will. I think that was one of the biggest risks anywhere in the league that anybody took in free agency. But I don't know if he's going to be part of their core. He certainly won't be part of their core, you know, past 3 years.
What about their leadership group? Last year, it became kind of a comical meme where they had like the captains at the beginning of the year. They all either got hurt, benched, or in trouble. And you're like, holy smokes. And a lot of these guys are now off the roster anyway. So you'd expect, I guess, Drake Maye kind of has to at that position. Where else are they going to lean on? Some of the new guys, I guess, coming in to sort of form that player leadership?
Yeah, it's a great question because, like, you look at Kyle Duggar, I've always thought that he was a very good leader, the kind of guy you want to emulate, but is he part of the old guard where, you know, they're trying to move on from that? I would think Gonzalez, he's very soft-spoken, but that's a great question about leadership. Milton Williams, I don't know if you guys ran any of the sound from him with Chris Long on the Greenlight podcast. If you've had a chance to listen to it or not, find it, because he really, really impressed me with his tone and candor. So he could be a guy who could elevate. But yeah, is Onwenu they don't have what you'd call blood and guts. Everybody get behind me. I mean, Morgan Moses was probably the most persuasive speaker I've heard in a few years. I mean, I love David Andrews, and he was very much a stoic leader, but there wasn't a lot of fire and brimstone there.
Before we let you go, Tom, and I would agree, not a lot of fire and brimstone there. Before we let you go, I know you kind of dabbled in this earlier, but your final prediction for what they do at pick 4, at least with us. I know you're going to talk to WEEI Afternoons on the day of the draft on Thursday, but what's your final prediction for what they do at 4? Are they sticking and picking? Are they moving it? How do you see it playing out?
They're going to try like hell to move it and move down and stay in the top 10. So that's the caveat. If they can do that and move down to a reasonable spot to get a tackle, I think they'll still do that. If they have to stick and pick, they'll take. I would think they'll take Campbell. I've continued to say Tyler Warren. I hope I'm right, just because I want to be right. But I would imagine they'll do what the sensible thing to do is.
Okay. He's Tom E. Curran. You can check him out every Tuesday, high noon, here on Jones and